Wham! Talk 1600. You're catching the drift. Conservative talk. Intelligent conversations on local, state, and national issues with Gary Wellings, chief editor of the Current newspaper and Current Online. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your host, Gary Wellings.
And good Saturday afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to catch my drift. Good to be back. Took a couple of weeks off, maybe 3 weeks off, I think. Pastor Rick, thank you so much for filling in for me. I was not on assignment. Thank you for covering for me. I was visiting my mom and dad down in Florida, so I want to say thanks to mom and dad for hosting me for a couple of weeks down there, and my sister down there as well, and my brother was down there, so we had a nice little family get-together for 2 weeks. So a little time off. Well-deserved. I needed it. I really did. So we've got a guest in studio today, Steve Williams, going to be running for re-election, Livingston County Commissioner, and that district is District 6. Steve, welcome to the show.
Oh, Gary, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I'm glad you could make it in. It's always easier to have somebody in the studio to chit-chat with, so we're glad to have you aboard. Now, your precincts are Marion Township, Putnam Township, precincts 2, 3, and 4 of Hamburg Township, and precinct 3, right, and then Village of Pinckney?
Right. It's a little different. Precinct 4 of Hamburg, and then most of Putnam Township, the Village of Pinckney, and the entirety of Marion Township.
Good. So. Well, and that's all areas that we cover in the Current. So that's how you and I met, through the Current. So
absolutely.
Great to have you aboard. We're going to talk about some issues that are going on in Livingston County, and then we'll get on and talk about news of the week as well. So hope you hang out and talk with us about that. Let's take care of a little business first. Our sponsor this half hour is Regency, 734-449-5505. Regency Healthcare in Whitmore Lake. They handle subacute rehab. They have a secure memory unit, a veterans program, 24-hour nursing care, hospice, respite care, the whole 9 yards. 734-449-5505. They're right down the street from my house, and they're a really wonderful establishment. They put a lot of money into renovating, so it's a great place. You can also catch them online at www.cienahealthcare.com. So 734-449-5505. That's Regency of Whitmore Lake. Check them out if you need some help in some fashion or another. Okay, so what we do on the Daily Drift is go over the stuff I put on the Daily Drift, and but today we're going to start out with a little local action. So, Steve, you're running a re-election. How many terms have you served now on the Livingston County Commission?
I'm in my 12th year, so I've had 6 terms. I've served the residents of Livingston County.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. It is amazing. But, of course, before that, I served the United States in the Army for 28 years, and I would never have believed I'd be in there that long as well. So 12 years went by very quickly also. Okay.
Well, thank you for your service. It's always nice to see. I wish we had more military guys running in the upper echelons of government as well. You know, it's been a while since we've had, Eisenhower was our last military president, yep. Right? So,
but Bill Clinton was the first that didn't serve.
Yeah.
So that's the part that bothers me the most. I think perhaps the tide is turning. I think people have become more engaged. You look in Congress, and we had a decline for so many years of members of military service, but I think that's starting to pick up a bit. A couple of those are even Democrats, which is inexplicable to me how anybody with military experience could be a Democrat. But either way, it's still good, because the way I look at it, people can talk a good game about military service or what they think, but it's kind of like childbirth. You know, I was there for the birth of my 3 kids, but I would never pretend to assume I know what it's like to be pregnant and give birth.
Right.
If you've never served in the military,
you don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
You can be a family member, you can be a strong supporter, and all those are very valuable, but it's still not the same as serving in uniform. So I have been heartened to see more people with military service, some of those Gulf War and post 9/11 vets that are getting more politically active and bringing that service in, especially at the national level, because really that's the primary, in my view, that's the primary responsibility of the federal government, is national defense.
Yep.
So I want to have a commander-in-chief on down that has had that experience.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I was kind of amazed that General Flynn now, who was a Democrat, right, was supporting Donald Trump, and they even talked about, he might be the VP. Well, he wasn't, but I'm assuming he's going to be somewhere in that cabinet when that happens. So who knows? Maybe we're going to end up with some real military guys.
Well, and it will be. It would be good. It'd be very good. There are a variety of positions there that would benefit from that military experience. A lot of times folks that haven't served don't really understand about the parallels between military service and what goes on in the rest of the civilian world.
Yeah.
And all those leadership skills and management skills and budgeting, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, really, when you talk about chief executive experience for president, that's what a commander is. When you have a unit commander, they're responsible for personnel, for logistics, for training, for operations, for discipline, for time management, for counseling, that whole variety of different responsibilities of a unit. And so that's a chief executive responsibility in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my one regret is I went into college and I was thinking about doing military and I didn't, and I've regretted it every day of my life. By the time I was thinking about really getting back into it, I was too old.
And you know what? You're not alone. And there, after post 9/11, I had folks that were going in late 30s and 40s, and this was their opportunity, and they made a lifestyle change. And a lot of them went in the reserve component, but then we've relied so heavily on the reserve component after 9/11. That they knew they were putting their lives at risk the same as anybody else. They were disrupting their lives, and a lot of folks can't serve. And I spoke at a funeral just this week for the long-term County Commissioner Jack LaBelle. He served 44 years, and he's the longest-serving county commissioner in Michigan history.
Really?
He was at Michigan State and had an ROTC scholarship, and he went and signed up for the Korean War, and yet he lost his scholarship because he enlisted, and then they tossed him out because he didn't have good enough eyesight in one eye. And so he never served. But you know what? He was a staunch supporter of the military. I would never not give credit to somebody who supports the military just because they haven't served. My point is that you gain that additional experience that is impossible to get in some other way.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing.
So it's not disparaging people that haven't served. A lot of great folks out there. But in terms of leadership, I wouldn't make a prerequisite for the president to have served, but I would really like that. I think it's really, really important. One of the primary functions, commander-in-chief, I think you see the difference when you have a President Clinton or a President Obama versus the Presidents Bush or Reagan or their predecessors. I mean,
definitely.
John Kennedy served on active duty during World War II. So, I mean, that it makes a difference.
Yep. Well, let's talk about Livingston County for a minute, because I always tell people Livingston County is the most conservative county in the entire state. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sure seems like it. Do you know off the top of your head if it is?
Depends on how you measure conservatism, but it's going to be up there because in terms of elected officials, we only have 3 that are named Democrats: the supervisor and or one of the officials in Unadilla Township and 2 trustees in Howell Township.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, of course, the township or the village and city positions are nonpartisan, and the school board positions are nonpartisan. But in terms of partisan elected positions, we only have 3 of all the townships and the county positions and the countywide positions.
And that's astounding because just a short way down the road here, we're in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, which is about as Democrat or socialist even as you can get. So it's pretty amazing that Livingston County is so staunchly conservative. So that's good. Now, let me ask
what's good is that when we have somebody who moves up from Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, maybe a conservative who comes to our county and then goes to the county GOP meeting and says, it's so nice to be in a place where my voice is heard.
Yeah.
And so understand that also, even though we have such a high proportion of Republicans and it's a very conservative county, whenever I get a constituent call, and I'd say the same is true of my other commissioners, you never ask, are you a Republican or Democrat? Did you vote for me?
Right.
We barely ask if they're in our district. This is not like, Chicago ward politics or Detroit politics. This is constituent service. And even though we are conservative, we are Republicans, we represent everybody, and we do the best that we can. We make the best decisions that we can. It's just that we represent a community with an overall conservative viewpoint and voting record.
Okay. So what do you think is the hottest issue for Livingston County this year coming up? Because it's an election year, what are the hot items that really make a difference, do you think, this time around?
Public safety is always an item, and of course, because we have a contested race in the prosecutor's office. Roads, as county commissioners, we get more calls about roads than anything else. But then the calls we get about things involving the court system tend to be more passionate than anything else. So as county commissioners, we're responsible for funding. We are the legislative branch of county government, but we don't really pass a lot of laws or ordinances. We don't pass laws at all. The ordinance, the one that we have on the books, is the loose dog ordinance. Townships, cities, villages pass far more ordinances. We're responsible for budgeting. We have a $75 million budget, general fund budget in rough terms, and we are still climbing back from the hole that county governments went into and other governments during the Great Recession. And what we're most proud of is the fact that we still have the lowest county tax rate in the state, and yet we're one of only 5 counties with a AAA bond rating.
Right.
So, and we're by far the smallest with a AAA bond rating. The others are Macomb, Oakland, Ottawa, and Kent. So we're kind of the little brother. So that combination of low taxes, but very, very strong fiscal responsibility.
Yep.
That's it for us. I mean, that's our focus. We have 24 different departments. We spend most heavily on public safety. 63% of the general fund budget goes to public safety. 38% of the general fund budget goes to the sheriff's department alone. And so that is our number one priority, but it's not our only priority. And so it's always a balancing act. Our budget is still this fiscal year, 17% below our pre-recession peak. And yet we have more residents than we did back in 2007.
Yeah.
And so, we work together, we work cooperatively, we work regionally. Our mental health regional conglomeration is with Washtenaw County, ironically. And then our support to help economically disadvantaged people is also Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency.
Yep.
We work with that group. We're part of the Huron-Clinton Metro Park, so we leverage that because we don't have a big, expensive countywide park system, but we want to make sure we have facilities for our folks. And we're part of the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments. So, it's those are our challenges. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it sounds a little mundane, but really everybody pays taxes, and we want to do the best we can with those tax dollars.
Yeah, I live right on the county line. I'm still on the Washtenaw side, and our taxes on the south side of Whitmore Lake are far higher than Green Oak, which is the north side of the lake, and that's across the county line there. So if I could get into Green Oak or Livingston County, I would, but at this point I'm kind of stuck in Washtenaw, so it's nice to be able to think about moving to Livingston. That's where I really would like to be. But that being
well, you're welcome. I can connect you with. As a matter of fact, our current Board of Commissioners Vice Chair, Carol Griffith, is a realtor.
Oh, yeah?
She was chair for 3 years. I served as her vice chair for 3 years up until this current year. So it's interesting because she can bring that perspective into our meetings and give us ideas about indications and trends. Because the majority, 63% of the county budget, comes from property taxes. So even though we have the lowest rate, that's where the majority of our income comes from. And it's been great having a variety of folks. When the Democrats criticize us for not having diversity, we have diversity. It's just not diversity of party. We have diversity of backgrounds, and we have women and men serving, et cetera, a variety of ages, variety of backgrounds. And so when you're ready to move to Livingston County, I know just a person to connect you with.
Good. That's great to know. What I always laugh when I hear people talking about the Democrat Party in Livingston County, because being in the newspaper business, I get a lot of information coming from them. And I'm always thinking, why would you want to change? I mean, things run pretty doggone well in Livingston County. When you compare it to some of the other counties around the state, you guys are right on top. So you guys are doing a fantastic job up there. So it's amazing when you get someone like Melissa Gilbert from Hollywood moves into town and thinks she's going to run for Congress and everything else. Thankfully, she's not running, because I was a little worried that people would be dumb enough to vote just for the name. You know what I mean? So that's always a spooky thing. But have you talked with Mike Bishop at all?
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Sure. No, absolutely. Because I mean, I used to talk with Mike Rogers frequently, and of course he was a service member. And when I talked about support to service members at the federal level, Mike Bishop, who didn't serve, actually has helped carry that on.
Good.
So yeah, I talked to him, and I encourage him. I mean, really, I already have a job and a half, and Livingston County commissioners it's a part-time job.
Right.
So I have full-time employment. I have the commission job, and I have a small farm. So you know what? I stay busy.
Yes, you're kind of like me. So you were. I looked you up on LinkedIn, and you're metrology, right? Is that what I saw?
I work for Zeiss Industrial Metrology.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the science of exacting measurement, and they work a lot with manufacturing.